Welcome to the Brainstorm episode 48. AI again. AI always. Last week we timed it well with the OpenAI announcement, and now we've got announcements from Google and Microsoft, and we're joined by none other than Frank Downing. Frank, maybe you take us through the Google event and then the Microsoft event, and we'll just see where it goes. I know Nick's been digging up some emails from 2012 to inform his opinion here. So,
so the Google event, Google I/O, this came the day after OpenAI's event that you already talked about. It was interesting in that OpenAI planned to do their event right before Google's and focused on products that are going to be available in the next few weeks around using highly capable multimodal models to drive voice experiences, to react to things on your desktop or things that a camera on your mobile phone is seeing. Turns out Google has very similar ideas. They showed off, for them seems like a bit of a more long-term project, but I'm sure we'll find it making its way into Android and mobile phones soon. But Project Astra, which is an evolution of Gemini, their kind of core suite of AI models that are going to have better multimodal capabilities, dramatically expanded context window, and be able to react to real-time video in a very similar way to what OpenAI demoed. They also showed this running on a pair of smart glasses. So you can start to see how this type of multimodal AI can be deployed into a new generation of hardware. They looked pretty similar to Meta's AI glasses. And you could picture Meta can already respond to what the user is seeing through a screenshot or a picture on the camera. And having a real-time video feed, you can make that experience kind of even more impactful and impressive, and also display. They showed on-screen video on the glasses as well, which I thought was pretty neat.
So Frank, just quick question. Who are you more impressed by?
The OpenAI demo was real. And Google's was pre-recorded. So I think that makes a big difference. The emotive capabilities of that model is extremely impressive. Google's were all really, for the most part, pre-recorded. But Google was impressive in a different way in that they were showing agent-based experiences, or basically ways that the model can accomplish tasks and actions for you, not just respond with kind of general knowledge to your questions, that really tie together the breadth of Google services. So the example they showed that I think is most interesting and exemplary of like what agentic experiences are is taking a picture of a recently purchased pair of shoes and telling the model that you want to return the shoes. And that model goes into your Gmail account. It finds the receipt from when you bought that pair of shoes. It fills out the form for you. It then schedules a pickup on your calendar for somebody to come and pick up the shoes and return them for you. And all that happens with like 3-word voice command and in a few seconds. To do that, you need to have a breadth of ecosystems or integrations that are all connected together and a powerful model that can actually string together those actions for you. I think where that goes from there and how they expand it to multiple use cases will be really interesting, and also open up new monetization areas, because I think the natural extension from return these shoes is buy these shoes for me, where you can imagine they get a cut on commerce that takes place through model-driven consumer acquisition.
Right. But right now, as you said, it's just a video recording, which means they likely used Microsoft's AI in video editing suite products. What did Microsoft just announce?
Yeah, so Microsoft, this just happened this morning, had an event that's a precursor to their annual developer conference Build, where they launched really their wave of next generation AI PCs, which is pretty buzzwordy, but they're basically have a new spec that requires more memory, more GPU compute in PC devices, and they're going to power kind of a whole range of AI use cases on these. They call them Copilot Plus enabled PCs. That will, I think, one of the most interesting things, besides just having a dedicated key to accessing Microsoft Copilot and being able to control more of your desktop using that. They have a feature called Recall that will basically be running locally and keeping track of everything that's happening on your PC, so that you can ask a question like, what was that specific slide about this customer I was working on 3 months ago? and it will go find exactly the context around the work you were doing and pull it up for you. And you can do this across really anything you were doing to discover previous tabs in your browsing history, conversations you were having in chat, etc. And it's kept with best practice privacy standards because it's all happening on your device. We'll see if certain industries choose to adopt that or not based on their own compliance standards. I know our compliance department would ask a few questions about how that feature actually works. But the other thing that's really interesting and important for one specific company is Qualcomm, which is a partner that will be powering Microsoft's initial AI-powered devices with their own ARM-based CPU in the PCs. That is supposed to be really the first challenger to Apple Silicon with their M1 through 4 chips. This chip should bring better battery life, better AI performance to Windows PCs for the first time.
Frank, do our MacBooks right now, what type of GPU do those have?
So they have GPU cores and what's called NPU cores, which are more AI specific versus graphics specific, built into the single M4 package or the M3 package, depending on what computer you have. And what Qualcomm has done is basically using the same ARM architecture license that Apple has, built a competitive chip that will power Windows PCs now. So Windows PCs, in terms of like peak performance being powered by Intel and AMD CPUs, have done well for peak performance, but really bad on energy efficiency, which is why Windows PCs, if you've ever used one recently, have much worse battery life than Macs. If this chip delivers as promised, Windows PCs should now see a significant bump up in battery life, which for me personally has always been one of the things keeping me on a Mac versus Windows PCs, because it's just horrible if you can't make it through 2 hours of meetings before your PC dies.
All right, so Nick, every single company out there has just announced the exact same thing. What are you thinking?
I mean, I think we went over this a bit last week, but just in hearing Frank detail Google and Microsoft's developments and their focus on agentic AI, I think I am getting to a stance where I think agentic capability can only exist in a vacuum or in an ecosystem, as in, the example that Google gave, which was, embedding agentic capability throughout its ecosystem, whether it's, Google Pay and then Gmail, right? You need to have that data and access in order to actually carry out tasks over the internet. And so I think it's a really strong competitive position to be in when you carry a massive ecosystem and, you're only talking about a handful of companies that have it. And I think, when they begin to deliver on these promises, it begins to just knock out individual startups left and right. I think before we were chatting about a company that, Microsoft probably just killed in their announcement, and there's probably plenty more startups in stealth that were going after single use case AI problems that I think when you begin to get into the realm of agentic capability or a wide sweeping digital assistant, it's really hard to build single use case AI functionality. That's how it's been shaping up. Companies are going after individual problems. I'm building an AI for coding assistance. I'm building an AI for XYZ. I don't think that is where the ultimate value will accrue. I think in at least the consumer space, maybe this is different in the enterprise space because of privacy and a lot of intercompany, call it just friction. I think in the consumer space, you're going to end up with maybe a handful, and by a handful, tops 3 truly competitive digital agents that work as your core digital assistant from a consumer aspect.
So you're team Goliath. You see a lot of Goliaths out there. You're not seeing a lot of Davids. Is that accurate?
I'm not team Goliath. I'm team, this is a innovation that powers both Goliaths and Davids, and it empowers the small creator to the large creator. and the large creators and companies have massive distribution, and that shouldn't be underappreciated when this is, inherently software innovation that is then tied to some hardware innovation that we're learning with Microsoft. Having faster compute, obviously, or more focused AI compute, obviously helps. But again, when you get into the hardware space, that's even smaller. That's even harder to break through. You don't hear a lot about startups in the hardware space. So, those are, I think, it's more so just a reality check versus, not wanting to see some of these upstarts win. I would love to see it.
Well, at least not hardware startups that are getting good reviews relative to Rabbit and Humane.
Right.
But Nick, what can you tell us your thesis on if we have agentic-driven consumer experiences? What happens to kind of the existing marketplaces if my Google Assistant is buying my shoes instead of me going to Amazon?
Yeah,
wait, Nick, before you start that, Frank, why aren't you wearing your Meta glasses? Is
Because
this
I
our
wear them
time?
so much that they're dead.
There you go. Battery. All right, Nick, carry on.
I think, and this is something we've been playing around with, this concept of marketplace disintermediation, as in if you have a digital assistant or an AI with agentic capability that can go out into different marketplaces and find the lowest pricing or the fastest delivery, whatever preference you've set, it begins to strip away the brand value that marketplaces today carry with them. So I think an example we've been giving is if you are looking for a ride hail, and you're checking right now between Uber or Lyft or whatever local service there is in your area and comparing pricing and delivery time, you're going to be doing that very manually, as in you're going into one app, you're looking at it, you're maybe slightly reserving it in your head, and then you're going to the next app, price comparing, doing the math, saying, okay, I'm going to go with X ride hail service. In theory, and again, this is in the vacuum of space where everything works without friction, you should have an AI agent that's able to price, compare, and match service delivery, all of these different aspects of a marketplace instantaneously and deliver to you the best product within your scope or what you prefer.
Mhm. Or even like
And
the
this,
AliExpress versus Amazon, right? It's like
right.
if you search for the same product, you probably get it for a fraction of the price if you're willing to navigate the uh, AliExpress.
Well,
Yeah.
it's exactly that. Like the agent LLM kind of type of interface, like disintermediates existing app interfaces that users think is their go-to
Mhm.
because you no longer need to open up 3 different applications. Like even I hate that every airline has a different application, and I'm like, oh, am I flying on United or Delta or Southwest, and where's my boarding pass? Like you can massively consolidate into one personal assistant.
Yes,
And I
so
think
there's the David. They're strong ecosystems that are getting ready to be disrupted.
there is massive disruption in what we're saying, but I think the reality of seeing this play out in the near term is a lot harder. As in, you need to get buy-in from the mobile app ecosystem. You need to get buy-in to allow these AIs to work within applications. That's why we saw Rabbit develop its own hardware, because Apple doesn't allow for this type of agentic capability to happen in the app ecosystem, nor would Uber or Lyft want an agent scraping their pricing and inventory to then deliver a comparison between the two services. There's reasons that these companies put up walls between themselves, and it's because they want to build brand loyalty. But I think at the end of the day, if you strip away all of that, what becomes the moat for a marketplace? In my opinion, it becomes speed in which you can deliver the product, inventory, and pricing. And then if you go down another layer and you ask yourself what companies have that, so what companies have the largest infrastructure to support speed of delivery and service, what companies have the lowest pricings, you can then begin to ask yourself, okay, these are the companies that will show up more in queries and preferences, and those are the companies that could ultimately win in this space. So I think that is, interesting as well. Like Uber and Lyft, they could end up benefiting from this because it's more so the long tail of ride hailing services that are offering promotions and trying to wedge themselves into the market. But if you have just an agent looking at what consumers truly care about, which is pricing, delivery time, X, Y, and Z, then only a few players will really be brought up in queries over time in my or search results.
All right, Nick, what about right before this, you sent me Zuck's email was this when they were acquiring Instagram, or when was it from?
I think it was when they were thinking about acquiring Instagram, and this is now truly a brainstorm because I think this is more of a half-baked idea that I've been playing around with this week since I've looked at these emails. But the email is Zuckerberg and I forget who within the company going back and forth on whether or not acquiring Instagram and offering, I think it was $1 billion in the email, would be a good idea. And one of the main reasons that Zuckerberg points to as a reason why to acquire Instagram, and I'll just read this, it's more reasonable here is that there are network effects around social products and a finite number of different social mechanisms to invent, or mechanics to invent. One person or one company, someone will win at a specific mechanic. It's difficult for others to supplement them without doing something different. And I think this was in talking to, the photo sharing aspect of Instagram and looking at that as a single modality within social that once pioneered and once pushed out to a large network would be really hard to supplant or, have another competitor come in because of the network effects of social media networks. And I was trying to think, are there, similarities here in building consumer facing AI applications? And I do think yes. And I think that's why distribution is extremely important, and the network effects that large distribution channels offer. The more data, right? We talk about this all the time. It's a flywheel effect. If you can have more users, you have more data, you can build a better AI again and again and again. And that's the flywheel that powers your moat over the long term. And so I think it's interesting to think if there are parallels and what that means for the individual players today. So that's my working assumption and idea based on some emails I was reading last week.
When, Frank, will Microsoft's PCs come out, and when is Google going to deliver on its pre-recorded promises?
Great question. Short answer is I don't know for both of them. Microsoft decided not to live stream this event for some reason, so they have a keynote tomorrow for the conference as it kicks off. Maybe they'll give more details. Maybe they said it in the live presentation and I didn't catch it in the notes that I read. But I would guess the AI PCs are going to ship later this year, and I would guess that Google does a slow, measured rollout of the agentic experiences with the next-gen Android devices.
Mm-hmm.
But those are just guesses. OpenAI is shipping their GPT-4o model now. If you're a premium user, you should have access to it. They're going to allow it for free users in the near future. And then the super interactive voice assistant, the specific voice they demoed, they're actually pausing because it sounded too much like Scarlett Johansson, which I thought was interesting. I guess you can't say that you publicly wanted to copy the persona of her without getting pushback. So that will come in the next few weeks. Maybe you won't have that specific voice available. But the one thing I forgot to mention from the Microsoft event that I think is relevant with OpenAI is that similar to how OpenAI showed a Mac application where you can share your screen to the model and have it respond in real time. Not a big surprise, but Microsoft is doing the same thing. They're just branding it as a Copilot feature using the GPT-4o model from Microsoft. And they actually showed interesting use cases in gaming where you can just have a video game up like they showed playing Minecraft and ask it, oh, I'm stuck here. How do I build this specific object? How do I do this? And the model just replies in real time. So it's like a real-time gaming assistant. And they showed it across a few games and a few applications. So it's really putting like an AI assistant at the forefront of every single application you're using on your computer because it can generalize across just anything that's happening on your screen, which I think will be a much better way to use these models than the current kind of implementation of Copilot, just like in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. If you've used any of those, it's like not super impressive, especially in Excel and PowerPoint, what they can do right now.
Is that opt in or opt out? As in, you're in essentially screen sharing, but is it just natively embedded, always turned on sharing?
Yeah, compared to the recall feature, which is like running a local vector database, like very private on device that is always on. I don't know if you'll have to opt in or opt out, but this feature is you press a button to enable it, so it's not on all the time, and then that level of inference can't happen on your computer yet, so it's definitely going to Microsoft's cloud to process it. So it will be more kind of privacy concerns on that one, would be my guess.
And is there an ability for a specific application to say, no, you're not allowed? Or is it, because they own the operating system, they have full control? As in, if you're using a specific, I don't know, call it, I guess Teams is owned by Microsoft. I need another example here.
Riverside, what we're using now.
Riverside.
Right. Basically, it's just looking at your screen, and at like the application layer, like they're presenting a user interface to a screen just like they were presenting it to like an external monitor or any screen recording device. So it like the application doesn't even know this is happening because it's like not on top of the application. It's actually like in the operating system layer. Microsoft said they have like 40 plus AI models that are going to ship embedded into Windows. This will probably be powered by one of them. So the applications, I think, have no control here over what's being recorded.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
I think
and extremely powerful.
Yeah. Well, I also think one thing that we should keep an eye on is the degree to which demos to reality, like that time dilation, right? Because it's like, in my mind, right, you think back to like the Apple, it's with classic throwback here, but right, with Steve Jobs, the one more thing, it's like, and one more thing, and it's, you can buy it now. And then it's like, we're slowly promising things that aren't ready yet.
I would agree, but I think we're splitting hairs because one, all of this has happened in such a short period of time. I mean, I remember, what was it, 2 years ago when DALL-E really sparked all of this, right? And it's only been 2 years, and look at the progress we've made. And so if Google shows something that's not live yet on Tuesday of last week, how long is it really going to be? I don't think this is like a deliver in 24 or present in 24, deliver in 25, 26. I think it's like deliver in early 24, ship by end of 24 type of scenario, because of how fast this space is moving. I mean, think about how quickly these companies have caught up, or how fast companies follow on. I mean, I feel like every week we're coming on here and talking about one instance of another company copying another company's product but making it slightly better, and it's just continuing to advance at such a rapid pace. That's why I think this time is so different from past potential innovation cycles or true paradigm shifts within computing, because a lot of the infrastructure needed to support this has already been built out, and so a lot of the innovation is taking place at the software level. And in software, you can just move, call it, I don't know, X amount faster than when you have to also pair it with advancements in hardware. Like the fact that Apple has been shipping NPUs for a number of years means that the tech landscape has seen this coming. We didn't know potentially how big it would be, but the infrastructure to support it has been there. Or it's, we're shifting over the infrastructure needed, as in, we're taking GPUs and we're putting it into AI. So it's been there. It's been on the periphery. It's just been waiting for the use case. And now
the
we
rails,
have it.
The rails are there.
And the rails are there, yeah.
Yeah, to put it in another framing that we talk about in our research a lot is that the cost declines are really strong here. So like a typical Moore's Law cost decline is the cost falls in half every 2 years. And what we've been seeing in AI is that the cost falls in half every 6 months or less to train frontier models. which is just crazy, the difference in the pace of innovation. And you're measuring that in cost declines. GPT-4o is 1/10 the price of GPT-4, and it's better in every way. And it's only 14 months older. So that's even faster than falling in half every 6 months. So it's really one of the fastest innovation cycles that we've seen.
And just to
Pretty
tie
crazy.
this back to like how we think about the space, at least within next generation internet, I'll give maybe consumer, and Sam, Frank, you can chime in here, but I don't mean to say that this is just, the big get bigger. I think that's possible, but I think there's a lot of companies that are going to benefit because of how enabling AI is. We were talking the other day, Roblox is a company that you may not think benefits from AI, but Frank was just giving an example of how you can embed AI to make video games more seamless for an end user. And the benefits that has is it brings in more users, and more users means more monetization over the long term. So you could look at a company like Roblox and say, what are they doing in AI? Oh, they're allowing companies or creators to embed or create with AI. So if you can create with AI, that means you can make more experiences. A company like Roblox, which develops a user-generated platform, that has massive implications for them, because if you can create more experiences, you can bring more users on. So I think it's kind of limitless in terms of the applications of AI and the number of companies that it benefits. On the consumer side, it's great for every platform out there in
Right.
a lot of different ways.
Nick, I think you've mentioned it before, but it's like, one, this is the time, it's happening so fast. And so it's like right now, it's like, people are like, this is an AI app. And it's like, well, that's pretty dumb, right? It's like every app is going to have AI. And then it's just going to seep into everything.
Right. It's like saying, going back and being like, we're an internet company. Every company is an internet company. Every company uses the internet. It's the same level of innovation, in my opinion, or will have the same implications globally, as in every company will be an AI company. Every company will use AI.
All right. We'll see what breaks in the world of AI and others this week.
Bye, everyone.